Thank you for joining me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. This is episode number 173, Grief and Hurt. Yesterday we talked about expressing pain, and a great sign of love to someone is to listen to their pain. Today we're going to talk about helping a child, or even a friend, truthfully, process grief and hurt in a healthy way with intention. There are a lot of grief responses, and we can go through the whole thing and I'll describe it to you because I have done a ton of study on grief counseling, but there is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And that's a decent model. The thing is, a lot of people say, oh, I've never really been depressed about it, or I don't think I was ever in denial. That's a hilarious statement when you think about it. I've never been in denial. Uh, and they don't necessarily always see the bargaining stage for what it is. They just don't necessarily believe they've been there. They've missed some of the steps, so they didn't grieve well. Oh, my word. It's about this. There are thousands of things in our lifetime that we grieve. I've literally seen kids grieve about the loss of their baby teeth, and they'll carry them around in their pockets, and they don't want to give them up. They feel like they lost something. And so each one of us grieves over different things, and we grieve with our own style, and we go through our own emotional process over grief. But I'm going to talk to you very specifically about some of the things that truly are grief processes, and pretty major ones for little kids. If they've lived in the same house for 7 or 10 years of their life and suddenly you're going to get a new job and you're going to move, and for you it's all really exciting and thrilling, but for them they're going through horrible grief because the only home and the only friends and the only life they've ever known is suddenly going to be different. That's a legitimate grief thing for them. You've got to see that. Their grandma and their grandpa dies. Death is a real grief thing, and frankly the death of a pet that they really care about is a true grief process. It's not a minimal thing that you need to kind of try to make disappear. No, that is legitimate real grief, and you need to handle it as grief. Of course, if their mom and dad get divorced, there is going to be a lot of grief involved, and it may be the relief of a lifetime for one of the parents to finally be out of a bad marriage, but it is not like that for the children. The children are grieving over the loss of their home and over the loss of one of their parents, especially if one of those parents runs off and gets married pretty quickly or replaces their partner pretty quickly. That is a massive grief process for a child, and you have to know and understand that and hopefully help them get through it. We've had the talk before, sometimes I'm stuck. We get stuck somewhere emotionally about something really traumatic. These are the very places your child could potentially get stuck. You don't want that to happen. You want them to continue to grow and develop emotionally and psychologically. Well, then you've got to help them process the grief. That is your privilege and, truthfully, your responsibility as a parent. How in the world are you supposed to do that? Let's say that you're serious about this and you're going to parent with intention. How you do that is you explain to them you are going to go through a lot of different emotions, and it might be within the space of 15 minutes, and it might be over the next 6 months to a year. And I'm willing to listen to all of those emotions because I care about you. I love you. I'm going to support you. If you're the person who went and filed divorce and you're the person who quickly married another guy or another woman, and you have your own emotional stuff that you're trying to deal with, it might be really challenging. And I want to acknowledge that to you. And I'm still going to say to you that you need to help your child in this process. You need to let them talk about their emotions, even if they're about you. I'm really mad at you about this. I'm really hurt about this. I'm really scared you're going to leave me. You left dad. Why wouldn't you leave me? You took off from mom and you're married to this other lady. I don't know who you're going to have another family, and I'm not even going to matter anymore. These are really things that kids think. If they feel safe, that they're going to say out loud. You need to be prepared to hear your child's statements, even if they have something to do with you. You also need to facilitate those statements with some kids. You need to ask them, how are you feeling? Oh, I don't know. I just, I don't know. Okay, you don't have to accept that answer. You really don't. Don't say, don't tell me you don't know. Instead, say to them, well, do you feel sad? Maybe. Are you angry about anything? I don't think so. Listen to the body language and the tonality. So, well, you kind of sound angry to me. This is not an argument. I'm not angry. It's not that. It is try to help them get a hold of their emotions. And they might not be easy to get a hold of. Like I said, they might be going through things. They might have 5 or 6 emotions in the space of 15 minutes. Oh, and they might have 2 or 3 at the same time. They might be sad. They might be angry. They might be frustrated. They might be disappointed. They might be scared. They might be all of this. If they're 5 or 6, they don't know how to say this to you. You have to help them with this processing. Hurt. You really hurt me when. That language. Pardon me. And a child might not be really comfortable saying that to a parent. You need to let them know that that's an acceptable thing. You really hurt me when you said that in front of Mrs. Baldwin. I couldn't believe you did that. I was so embarrassed. Okay, that probably wasn't good judgment on my part. I should have had that talk with you when we were all alone. I'm really sorry that I hurt you. The words I'm sorry, when they are genuine, and you say, I'm really going to work on not doing that anymore, have a lot of power. You have to mean them. Don't just do this flip. Okay, I'm sorry. No, that's not what I mean. Sit with the child, go through what really happened, own your part in it, ask for forgiveness, acknowledge it, admit it, deal with it, handle it, use whatever language you need to use, but let your child understand that I wasn't trying to hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt you, and I'm so sorry that I did. That's healing, and that's what you want. You want a child who is healthy and is whole and complete and capable of handling frustration and difficulty and truly grievous things as much as you possibly can. All right? If you have a child who is sick or who has a sibling that is sick, because I know a young man who's been fighting cancer for about 2 years. It's been really tough on him and all of his siblings. He has quite a few siblings. Each one of them is processing it differently. They all realize that he could die. And hallelujah, a couple years later, he's responding well still to treatment, but he is certainly not all better. And it still is a threat to his life. They're having a long-term grief process. If you have a parent with Alzheimer's or a mate with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, certain kinds of long-standing disease entities that you're going to have a long, drawn-out grief process where you will go through various stages of emotion and state because they might be better, and you build up all this hopefulness that, oh, I think they're over it, and then they regress again, and you go through all that disappointment and all that sadness. And you have to help your child understand that grief really is a part of life. The older you get, the more of your family and the more of your friends die. That's a fact. I remember my grandmother at 96 sitting in a wheelchair and saying to me, do not get old, Vi. That was her advice to me. I said, Grandma, what would you like me to do? Buy a gun? I mean, I was being a somewhat smart aleck something, or, not quite 20-year-old, but I was dead serious on the other hand. Like, what's the alternative, right? I got to live however many days God gives me, and I realize I might get old because genetics are on my side. The key is the older you get, the more you're going to have to handle grief. And hopefully, if you are teaching your child to handle grief in a good way, a healthy way, you will get better at it. It doesn't mean you're ever going to like it. I promise you, you won't like it. But you will get better at it. You will handle it in a better way. You might even be able to process it more quickly than you could when you were 5 or 10. And all of those steps in gaining a certain skill level at coping with grief are healthy steps for you and for your children. I want you to know, Little kids get sick. Little kids sometimes die. Car accidents happen. Fires happen. Horrible, unimaginable accidents happen, whether it's falling off of a ladder and breaking someone's neck and paralyzing them, which I've seen. Just walking down a road pretty innocently, and a truck goes by, and the sheer of the wind pushes you off the road and causes a really freaky accident, and you have brain damage. Car accidents happen. I just cannot tell you. Thing after thing after thing. I'm not going through the whole entire list of possibilities, but I want you to know that every single day, every one of us is incredibly protected, more than we ever dreamed, when nothing ever goes wrong. So when something goes wrong, and don't worry, we're dealing with this in a day or so, so look for that episode, but when things go wrong and we grieve over the loss of parts of our body being utilized. If we have a stroke and we're paralyzed and we can't feed ourselves correctly anymore, or use our hand correctly anymore, or walk, we have so many things in life that we have grief and hurt over, and we have to process that grief or not. And if we don't, it is not healthy for us or the people with whom we live and relate. But if we do, then we have the opportunity to heal and to move on, and to do so in a way that is productive and useful, and that allows us to assimilate the hurts and the grief into our life as a part of our life process. I want you to know it is not easy. I've been studying this for probably 20 years, and I'm still getting better at this. I don't expect you to be perfect. I just want to give you this specific tool that might enable you to process grief and hurt better than you have before, and allows you to help your child to process grief, because all of us definitely experience grief in this life. My challenge question for you today is, how do I handle grief? If you handle it great, that's awesome. You're probably well equipped to help your child. If you handle it poorly, you might learn to handle it better, in order that you can enable your child to handle theirs better. If you're okay, here and there, so, well, then you have room for improvement. That's a good thing to know. So how do I do at handling grief? And am I able to help my child process his or her grief? Because when you are, then you are better able to raise a healthy, well-adjusted, flexible person who can get through life and walk through some of the combat zone and some of the minefields of life and get out of it safely, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually safely. And that is our goal, that we raise our children in as safe an environment as we can possibly give them, and that we teach them how to cope with some of life's many challenges. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please leave me a comment, a suggestion, a question. I will look forward to seeing you again soon on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.